In 2011, he released the landmark Grammy-nominated Low Country Blues. Gregg passed away on May 27, 2017, just days after completing his final album. Southern Blood is a remarkable testament to Gregg's creative spirit, and fittingly, it is nominated for 2 Grammy Awards this Sunday evening. Yeah. And tonight we've invited an incredible array of artists to share a few stories and some great music in tribute to Gregg Allman. So let me make some introductions here. First, a guitarist, songwriter, and composer. He was Gregg's musical compatriot and music director for the last 10 years, and he is nominated, along with Gregg, for a Grammy Award this Sunday for the song My Only True Friend. Would you please welcome Scott? Now our next guest is well known for his work in Honey Tribe and the Royal Southern Brotherhood, bands with whom he toured the U.S. and around the world. Give it up for Devon Allman.
Yes, it is.
A singer, songwriter in her own right, Gregg's daughter, Layla Allman.
Yeah!
So our next guests share their father's reverence for the generations of artists that came before them. They've taken the country blues sound of Tennessee and northern Mississippi, and you know who I'm talking about, and merged that with their rock and roll influences. Please welcome our friends Luther Dickinson and Cody. So, how about this group? Come on. As a means of kind of setting the stage for what you're going to see here in a few minutes, I want to talk to these folks about Gregg Allman, about what he means to them as artists, and particularly kind of what we hear in Southern Blood. And I'm going to start with Scott, because as you know, as I said in the open, you were with him for 10 years. More importantly, the entire process leading up to Southern Blood. So tell me a little bit about his mindset, the song choices that you guys were going through, the vibe around making Southern Blood.
Well, the writing of the song My Only True Friend was sort of the first shot across the bow that we knew we were going to have to make a record. So we started by writing that song and kind of built a concept around that. And a lot of it had to do with playing shows and trying things on the road. And eventually, Don came in and had some song ideas. We added those to the pile. And the process of the last couple years was it was very difficult for me personally in a close inner circle within the Gregg Allman Band of those of us who knew he had a terminal cancer diagnosis, which I believe the figures were something like, and you guys can correct me, but I think he had, when he told me he was going to pass away, he told me he had 8 months to live, and then I think he pulled out about close to 3 years or 2.5 years.
Right, yeah.
So Southern Blood was cut during that borrowed time, and that definitely, I mean, anyone who has the record knows that the album is an absolutely brilliant farewell.
And it's very much, as you listen through it, we talked about this earlier, it's very much a kind of a summation. I mean, coming to a summary of his life and career. Devon, I'm wondering, in the last year or so, the kind of conversations you had with your father about music.
Share those, but yeah, it was wild because I called my dad and we knew that he didn't have very long, and I called him and I said, man, you need to cancel your tour and go home and he said, fuck that.
Yeah!
He said, man, if I got a year or two left, I'm gonna go play as much as I can play. And that was his dedication to the craft and to the people, to the fans that wanted the music. And, where most people would love you too, where most people would take it easy, he went full bore.
Harder.
Absolutely, and the record is, very, very much a testament to that.
Well, and it kind of goes back to My Only True Friend, is that, he became most himself when he was on the road.
Absolutely.
I'm going to come down here to Luther and Cody, because you guys have a different relationship to the Allmans through your father, the work he did with Dwayne. Tell me about how you guys kind of came up with that music and how it affected you.
It was just, part of the soundtrack, the fabric of our life, with the vinyl, Idlewild, Fillmore, and then in 90, and Tom Dow gave Dad a DAT of the Fillmore remaster, the box set, and that CD really changed our life. When they re-released Live at the Fillmore, I was 16, 17, and doing a lot of experimentation, and it was literally the thing where, that's what I want to do with my life. Literally, yeah.
I'm going.
Fillmore East was changed my life, but we very much molded the sound of our band, around the Allman Brothers and around Mudboy and the Neutrons, which was our father's band. And growing up, becoming great friends with Devon and Dwayne, and getting to play the music with them, I realized how much of a family element. It's like that music is a part of all of us. It's part of the lexicon. But it changed my life. It was literally what gave me the direction for the North Mississippi All-Stars.
Yeah. And I'm wondering what did your dad tell you about working with Dwayne and working with the Allmans?
Well, Mom had a good story.
All right, even better.
So real quick, Dad was a session player on the circuit, and he worked with Dwayne a lot, making records for Atlantic or whoever. And he's on the anthology records. And there are Gregg stories too. We'll get to that later. But Dwayne and Mom, they're like family folk legends, like people like your great grandfather or crazy old Dwayne. Mom's story was they left Fame, and Dwayne got in a van with a couple of chicks, and and Mom and Dad were behind him, and they got to the stop sign, and Dwayne jumped out of the van butt naked. He was like, "Which way to the highway?" So there's just one a minute.
Rock and roll always, right? Yeah. So I'm not sure this is the best segue to you, Layla, but we'll do it because I'm shameless. I'm wondering if, as you listen to Southern Blood, and by the way, that title was your idea. So tell us a little bit about the thinking behind it.
Yeah, I was really fortunate to become very close to my father the last 5 years of his life. And as he was making this record and battling what he was battling, I think his music career kind of flashed before his eyes, and he wanted it to come down to one, simple, elegant piece. And I think he really did that with Southern Blood. And we'll get to the artwork and the inside sleeve of the vinyl shortly, which inspired the album titled Southern Blood. But I really feel that recording the record at Muscle Shoals and being who he was, there's a spirit in the South that kind of manifests itself through that style of music. And I really feel like he embodied that in every sense of the term. And Southern Blood just kind of came to me, and I suggested it to him, and he immediately loved it. He felt like it wrapped up his career.
Yeah. When you listen to Southern Blood now, what do you hear?
Well, that record kind of told me things that he wouldn't tell me at the time. He didn't, I wasn't like with Scott, sat down with my father and was told that, he had 8 months to live. He didn't really say that to his kids, but when I was hearing this music come back from Muscle Shoals, I went, this is it. You could hear it in the record. Yeah.
And Scott, in terms of the sound of Southern Blood and doing it at Muscle Shoals, that was a very special place for Gregg.
Yeah, well, specifically Fame Studios, I think one of the first professional demos Dwayne and Gregg ever did together with one of their early bands was done there with Rick Hall producing. And I know because Rick came to the studio when we were making Southern Blood, and Gregg, it was the only time I've seen him get really nervous when we had like a playback going, and I was like, man, what's going on? I said, Gregg, I said, you all right, man? And he's like, man, Rick Hall, he scares me, man. He taught Dwayne and I some really tough lessons when we first came here, and he was very thankful for it. He was very in awe of Rick, actually, and we also just recently passed away. May he rest in peace. He was a true innovator. But in the decade I spent with Gregg, it was the first time I got to consistently go down south and make music, make records, and play live, and that's if you really want to get your music baptized, that's where you go. It all came from the South, all of it. And Gregg used to say there's no such thing as a Southern rock. All rock is Southern.
I want to ask you guys, Luther and Cody, what is it about, particularly going to Fame, going to Muscle Shoals? I mean, there's definitely a vibe by going into a place and recording. Talk about how the environment affects what comes out.
I think a classic recording studio is like a well-used family kitchen or a church or a woodworking shop or something. It's a place where it's built to do one thing, and that thing has been done in there so many times that, especially when it's something as spiritual as music, that it just becomes like Hendrix said, the electric church. And like our place in Mississippi, it's just, you just go in there and you just fall into making music because the music spirits dwell in there. The path is already beaten.
Right. So you guys had the chance to meet Gregg any number of times, and he imparted some wisdom to you guys. Would you tell us that story?
Well, because we were friends with Warren. We've been friends with Warren since we were kids, and many times he and Derek would invite us to come sit in and just to stand there and listen, to stand there and play and have Gregg sing. It was just chilling. It was just a dream come true. And then sometimes we would open up, a handful of times. But one time, Gregg stood in the wings and watched us, and we saw him the whole set, and it was a good set. I got to say, I don't know. I think maybe he was putting the heat on us, But afterwards, of course, we went right over to him and said, "Hey man, what's up?" He's like, "Yeah, are you cats brothers?" I said, "Yeah, we're brothers." But no, he was like, take care of each other and make every day count. Make the most out of every day.
Think about that just for a minute. Devon, so after Southern Blood is done, and you're listening to those songs, how did you react to that set of music?
Man, I remember Elijah and I were talking about him needing to really make another, record that had the longevity and the soul and the heart of like Laid Back, because that was always a favorite among fans and among our family and stuff. And we had we were starting to talk about producers and like who would be cool to produce this record, and we got down to Rick Rubin, like the heaviest hitter, but obviously him and Don are the kind of the top of the heap, And Elijah's like, oh, I'll just give him a ring. He calls Rick Rubin. Rick says, I'll do it in a heartbeat. I was like, yeah, it's going to be amazing. Rick Rubin producing Dad. This is like biggest comeback kind of. So I called Dad. I go, man, I got great news, man. Rick Rubin wants to produce that record. And he goes, hey, man, who's Rick Rubin? I go, yeah, never mind. And, but man, Don was, so instrumental.
He definitely deserves a shout out.
Man, for sure. I mean, what a legend, and what a cat to have, at the helm for the final statement. I mean, I mean, I still have a hard time getting through the record, to be honest. It makes me really sad.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard, and I imagine it will be for a while. Everyone deals with grief in different ways, but I heard it one time all the way through when I got the copy, and I haven't listened to it since then.
Oh.
It hurt bad.
Yeah.
And I know that later down the road I'll put it in, and then I'll be able to actually enjoy it instead of it just ripping my insides out. But what a record, man! And the song that Scott wrote with that is one of his
Grammy nominated. Grammy nominated. By the way. So Scott, speaking of that, Gregg and I had the opportunity, very fortunately, to spend more than a few hours with Gregg over the course of the last couple of years of his life. And one of the things he kept saying to me was, "This is the best band I've ever had." Tell us about who's in the band.
Well, we're lucky enough to have two with us tonight. We have Pete Levin on keys. Ron Johnson played bass on the record, but we have our final bassist, Brett Bass, is here tonight as well. He'll be playing. You know, they're guys from New York, and my philosophy was, when Gregg asked me to be the band leader for him, he said, "I want to get the right cats," and I said, thought about other bands we played with, thought about his general musical philosophy, and I said, "There's a term," and you guys might know who, this sounds like something your dad would have said, but I've heard it a lot. New York hustle, Memphis muscle.
Yes.
Is that your dad, or is that a friend of your dad? That sounds like something he would have said.
Man, it's just amazing how proud Gregg was of his band, and you did such a great job putting that together. But it was amazing, man, because you had a lot of Memphis cats in there, like the horn section.
We had the horns and drums. Horns and drums, man.
Yeah, and it was...
So that was Steve Potts on drums, who is a legend around Memphis.
He's like my neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and the great horn players, Mark Franklin and Art Edmiston, and then the New York part was Mark Quinones from the Allman Brothers from the Bronx.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's from the Bronx, born and raised. He's by far the most New York guy in the band, because he could give you a Bronx-style playground beatdown on the bus, I tell you. Mark kept a very clean bunk, a very clean place. You want to mess with Quinones. And who am I missing? I think that's Jay Collins, of course, who got me in the band. The wonderful sax player, and I knew Jay and played in his band, and then played with him with Levon Helm right before I got the gig. So we had a dream collection of players, and the last couple years, and of course the Southern Blood album was that cast of characters.
Right. Devon, much has been made about Gregg's vocal abilities over the years, and they're unmatched. But as after he passed away, there were many things written about being the greatest white blues singer, and you disagree with that assertion.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, especially cats that make music, we don't see color, man. You just don't, and the world needs to pick up on that. I mean, I got a tattoo of Curtis Mayfield on my arm. Like, I mean, that's in our family. It's like we wear our heroes on our sleeve. I think the angle there was, I don't think that he was the greatest white blues. I think he was one of the greatest blues singers who ever sing, with soul, with real unbridled soul. He just channeled it. It came out of himself.
Layla, I'm wondering, because you're a singer. What did he ever tell you about singing?
Everything my dad ever taught me about music, it wasn't us sitting down with instruments and learning a C chord. He was very philosophical about it. I think what I really took away from him is there's what you're playing, there's how you're playing it, and then there's why you're playing it. And I think he had the why part down more than anyone. That's what I learned from him for sure.
We were talking earlier, and you guys were talking about the family aspect of the Allman Brothers connected to your dad, and the family tree that the Allman Brothers kind of began. Talk a little bit about and how that influenced ultimately the North Mississippi All-Stars.
I mean, it's crazy the way it branches out, and like like the Wani Fest and all the different subsidiary groups. And,
I think we have some people who've actually been to that festival.
Yeah, it's like an umbrella, and again, like the Allman's music is just like a lexicon that we all share. It's like a musical vocabulary that I grew up on. So. I mean, I also had a camp called Roots Rock Revival that I taught with Butch Trucks, and can't believe we lost him a year ago today. And it's crazy, I'm so sad. I miss him so much, man. But like that experience was amazing, man, because I felt like he was teaching us. There was like such a passing of the torch happening, not just for us, but like for everyone participating in that camp. But when the time finally came for us to play the music, I realized that it was that it was intrinsic in the group of players like Dwayne Betts, Devon Allman, Brooklyn Allman. It's like when we get together and we play Barry Oakley Jr. Yeah, when we play that music, it's their legacy. You know what I'm saying? And it's like the music is so powerful, man. Just to be a part of that is mind-boggling. But it comes down to the family, man. It's their legacy.
And one of the things we had talked about earlier, and I've talked to any number of people tonight about the Allman Brothers music, Gregg's music, and his songwriting, and it seems as though it's in your DNA. I mean, there are certain artists, and you can name them, who you don't even know why you know the words to the songs, but you know the words to the songs.
Well, Devon and I are working on a project. We're recording new music called The Slays, and we were in the studio in Memphis doing some vocals and doing some background vocals, and when he sang, man, it's like the power just coming off of, coming out of his mouth, man. Devon is incredibly talented, but it's DNA and genetics too, you know what I mean, man? It was like, I was like, I'm singing with an Allman right now. Right. There's no question. Brooklyn too, she tears the house down.
Scott, one thing you mentioned, and I have to get to this about Gregg, and kind of challenging you a little bit to always be your best. So tell me, you told me a little story.
Well, I think the reason we had this conversation is we were saying, rock and roll isn't always a picnic. It's not always supposed to be cute. And there's a saying we have, as a guitar player, I live to play in the rhythm section. We say the groove is in the rub. And that can be true emotionally also. So occasionally, Gregg would come down real hard on me about something. Usually the volume of the guitar. And of course, that's a whole nother panel if we want to talk about how that started with him and Dwayne and how it went through everything. But sometimes he would vibe me pretty hard before a show in the early days, and I would really, hone in, bear down, concentrate, try to be more melodic, try to be more sensitive and dynamic, and then on those gigs, luckily after the gig, he would say, "Yeah, man, that's it, keep doing that."
Nice.
But yeah, but he understood. It's important to say too, like when I joined the band, it was a bunch of incredible players, but they were sidemen. And by the last 3 or 4 years I was in the band, he was treating us like a band. So he was really imparting wisdom upon us, and there was a brotherly love to it. That's important to say. It wasn't like I'm the boss. It was like, this is music. You're going to leave your heart on the floor and you're going to listen. Open your ears up and listen to your band and listen to me.
Yeah.
And that's the shit.
Hear, hear. Well,
it's like a fine tradition too, like the blues. It's like
paid it forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Paid it forward.
That's the thing. The velocity of the power and the vision of the original lineup. That's this group of like-minded kids. You know what I mean?
And then that's the amazing thing about when they were making that music in '69, '70, '71, they were young kids, and it was remarkably. And
you talk about black and white.
Yeah.
They were in the segregated South, and there's freedom rockers, man, marching forward, leading by example. Man.
Well,
speaking of which, I asked J-Mo once, man, you look at those old pictures and all those speakers behind the drums, man, what the hell was it coming out of those speakers? He was like, loud. First he said, what? Then he was like, loud ass guitar. Guitar and speakers behind the drummer. You talk about getting in the groove. You're gonna hear some guitar.
And you were talking during sound check as you guys were running through the tune you're going to play tonight. The groove, the rhythm, is it's not easy to get. You got to kind of figure it out.
Oh man, yeah, those Dickie and Dwayne are fantastic rhythm players.
Yeah.
And Gregg cannot be underestimated as a B3 player.
Right. Right. Well, hey, we could talk for a while, but I wanted to be sure to give everybody the opportunity to kind of give these folks a sense of Gregg and this remarkable last album. I very much appreciate you guys taking the time. Scott Jerome, Layla Dickinson, Cody Dickinson,